Coming up on Sports Pause, Quinnipiac gets its first MAC title.
And the men's ice hockey team has a busy weekend with Brown and Yale.
And basketball is back at the TD Bank Sports Center.
All that and more coming up on Sports Pause.
Hello everyone and welcome to Sports Pause. I'm Jordan Siegler.
And I'm Mark Spillane, and we're here to recap the week of Quinnipiac sports that just passed. And Jordan, what a week it was.
Absolutely, Mark. It was an extremely busy week. The men's and women's basketball teams began their seasons.
And the men's ice hockey team had 2 games at home, including the always anticipated Heroes Hat game against Yale.
But don't forget, the field hockey team went down to Ryder for the MAC championships. But before we see how they did, it's worth noting that this year marks a first for the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. It is the first year that field hockey is a sponsored sport for the conference. This also makes the 2013 tournament the first MAC Field Hockey Championships.
And following a 12-6 regular season, the playoff stage was set for Quinnipiac field hockey. Second-seeded QU squared off with third-seeded Bryant in the MAC Championship semifinal on Friday with a chance to advance to the title game. Let's check it out. Quinnipiac and Bryant, as I mentioned, 2-seed versus 3-seed down at Ben Cohen Field at Ryder in Lawrenceville, New Jersey.
And so after the long season, only one game remained between the Quinnipiac field hockey team and a MAC championship. A win would make the team both the first MAC field hockey champions and the first MAC champions in Quinnipiac history. But before any of that, the team had to beat the Robert Morris Colonials. Quinnipiac facing off against Robert Morris in the MAC championship game after their win over Ryder. The team's coming out. EP award. She had the lone goal in the championship game. The Bobcats will take one last picture with the banner and their trophy. They are MAC champions. Here is Tom Albanese after the game.
To be a first in anything, to be, the first started today was a game that we were never going to forget.
The field hockey team will ride their MAC championship to the 2013 NCAA Field Hockey Championships. The Bobcats will play in a playing game on Wednesday against American University. The winner of this game will play #1 ranked Maryland in the first round.
The Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team used 2 victories last weekend versus Colgate and Cornell to continue their climb up the national rankings. The Bobcats jumped to #5 in last week's USCHO.com poll. They remained the top-ranked ECAC squad as Yale moved up to 9th. RPI remained at number 10, Cornell dropped to 15th, and Clarkson climbed to 16th. Minnesota remained the unanimous #1 team.
With the men's ice hockey team about to embark on a big weekend, the team received a blow. Head coach Rand Pecknold announced on Tuesday that freshman forward Peter Quenneville had quit the team and withdrawn from the university. Quenneville had 4 assists in 5 games while playing on the first line with the Jones brothers before an injury kept him out for the last 4 games. Coach Pecknold had this to say on Quenneville, quote, "We wish Peter all the best as he moves on. Peter wants to focus only on hockey, and here at Quinnipiac University, our players are committed to excellence in both hockey and academics. We were surprised by his decision to leave," end quote. The circumstances of his departure is unknown. However, it is known that Quenneville will now play for the Brandon Wheat Kings with his brother John Quenneville.
Well, Jordan, despite the loss of Quenneville, QU got some good news last week as they swept the weekly ECAC awards. Connor Jones received Player of the Week honors for his 3 goals and 1 assist in the 2 victories over Colgate and Cornell. He also became just the 20th player in program history to cross the 100 career point plateau. Freshman forward Sam Annis earned the Rookie of the Week award for his 5 points in last week's victories, and sophomore goaltender Michael Gartig won Goaltender of the Week for his 2 wins, including his first career shutout versus Cornell.
Last year, the men's ice hockey team won 30 games. However, none of those wins came against Brown. The Bobcats took on the Bears twice throughout the regular season, with both games ending in ties. The Bears also ended Quinnipiac's run at the ECAC title last season in the semifinals with a 4-0 win. Brown is the only ECAC team the Bobcats did not beat last season, but that was last year. Now it's a new season. The men's ice hockey team getting ready to play Brown up at the High Point Solutions Arena on Friday night. The Bobcats trying to extend a winning streak. And here you see Brown passes it up to Kellen Jones, and Jones is going to score the empty netter from the blue line. That puts the Bobcats up 3-0, and they would go on to win by that score.
What do you do when opportunity presents itself? Some are given opportunity. Others must go out and make their own. Justin Harris left Paramus Catholic High School in New Jersey in pursuit of an opportunity. That opportunity was to play Division I basketball.
I knew it was going to be a different level, and I was excited and nervous at the same time, but I was ready for the chance to play.
So you're coming from high school. What was going through your mind now you're a freshman, you're fighting for minutes?
It was sort of the similar situation going into my freshman year of high school. There was a senior-laden team, and I was a young big man, and I think I was more cocky coming into high school because I was playing on great teams, and I thought that my skill level was enough for me to play like varsity high school basketball. And then so by the time I humbled out, by the time I got to college, it was real different because I was behind a lot of good players that were here before me.
Harris found himself behind the likes of Jamie Jackson and Ike Azatam, and for his first 2 years played sparingly. Going into his junior year, Harris expected that he was going to get his opportunity. What wasn't expected was the emergence of freshman A.J. Sumbry.
It's definitely heart-wrenching when you know that coming into your junior year, it's like, all right, Ike and Us are the set two big men because Ike's first league all-player, and Usman's one of the all-time leading scorers, rebounders that come through the school. So it's like you understand that their spot's solidified because they've been producing since they walked in the door. So it was like confusing for me to be put behind a freshman in my junior year. So it was mixed feelings towards the coach and other things like that.
Put in perspective, how frustrating was it those 3 years?
It was extremely frustrating because coming from out of high school again, people in the Jersey area that watched basketball, they thought that I wasn't dedicated to the game. They didn't think that it meant that much to me just by watching me play in scouts like that. So my whole aspect of going into what I was doing was that I need to prove these people wrong, and I knew that I could produce at this level. But up to that point, I hadn't had any stats, hadn't done anything. I was averaging point a game, barely playing. So obviously going back home and why aren't you playing, this and that, it's difficult to answer those questions.
Harris was going to make his opportunity in his senior year.
It's my senior year. I've been around the block for a long time, and I've done almost everything that I could to play. So I understand the ins and outs of what Coach Moore wanted, what the coaching staff wanted out of me, and I knew I had to accept that leadership role because we already had two freshmen coming in the for big men. So it was like I was propelled into that role with Ike leaving, and then there wasn't that second big man to go to really. So somebody had to take over the role, and I was more than confident that I was ready to do it, being a senior.
Once again, it was a new recruit that was given that opportunity. Opening night against Yale, do you feel like you should have started that game?
I had a chip on my shoulder when I realized that I wasn't starting coming out that game, that I needed to prove that this is my senior year and I'm 100%, 110% dedicated to the team. I'm willing to do whatever it takes for us to win games, and I'm willing to sacrifice to put up numbers and to produce to help us win games. And I think that him starting that first game, that kind of was like, all right, maybe I need to put a little more in practice to do a little more because this is my last go around. You don't get another chance, I can't come back. So it was like, it hurt, but I knew I had to do something to get that starting spot.
It was only a matter of time until number 22 got that starting spot. After solid performances in the first two games, Harris would go on to start Game 3 at Albany, and he would never let go. He would record a career high at Fairfield, scoring 23 points, and he would continue to be an integral part of the team, never relinquishing his starting spot for the rest of the year. What do you take away from these 4 years?
Just persistence. Coming from the situation that I was in where I was literally in mothballs, sitting at the end of the bench every day, and it got to a point my first 3 years where I came to games knowing that I wasn't going to play, no matter what happened, no matter if somebody got in foul trouble, if somebody fouled out, or if we weren't blowing anybody out by 30 plus points, I wouldn't get into the game until the last couple of minutes. But then realizing that I wasn't satisfied with that, I wanted more out of my college experience, and I wanted to be able I played college basketball and I did well.
Do you have any regrets from the 4 years here at Quinnipiac?
Any regrets? I guess I could pinpoint times, maybe, saying that I could have went harder in practice, did this and that. So I guess my only regret was not playing sooner or not doing what it took to play sooner, because sitting around on the bench for 3 years is not fun, no matter what sport you're playing. So it's like you got to understand that these moments are short and you got to cherish them, but you also got to understand that you can't get too excited and enveloped in the emotions of everything that you let it just zoom right by and you don't realize what's going on.
Harris is now searching for opportunities to play overseas and to continue to pursue the sport that he says means everything to him. For Q30 Sports, I'm John Small.
Football. It is the most popular sport in America today. It is an institution in society, an integral part of our culture. But it's also one of the most dangerous. Maybe the most known dangers of football today are concussions. While concussions have been a problem since the beginning of contact sports, it has not always been looked for.
You know, there was a time a kid got up and he was shaking his head and you would just tell him to shake it off and hang in there. Now if you see a kid, shaking his head and dazed, you take a closer look at it just to be sure and err on the side of safety.
With more emphasis being placed on preventing concussions, the problem is that the technology simply isn't there.
There's nothing right now that prevents a concussion out there. So there are myths out there that the helmet would prevent concussions. The helmet was designed to prevent skull fractures. Again, if you take the analogy of the egg inside of the eggshell, even if I put it in a foam box, if I shake that foam box and hit it around, the egg is still going to move around inside the eggshell. That's what's happening inside the helmet.
But the solution to concussion prevention may not be equipment related. According to Professor Botto, the solution lies in the amount of exposure players are getting. He cites college football's all-time wins leader, Division III head coach John Gagliardi, as a model for preventative measures.
And the thing that separated him from everybody else was he had no tackling during practice. He didn't work with tackling dummies, and he had no mandatory weightlifting. And so what he did was he minimized the amount of exposure his players had, and as a result, not just concussions dropped, but all injuries dropped.
Botto says that the large number of hits accumulate over time to cause CTE, the neurological disease that has affected a large number of football players. We've now seen the disease start affecting players at a much younger age, like former Penn lineman Owen Thomas. Thomas committed suicide back in 2010 as a result of effects of CTE at the age of 21.
That's a really young age, right? Because when we usually hear about CTE and all those, other results from, head trauma, we're usually used to, Junior Seau's of the world, right? The retired football player who's upwards of 30 some odd years old.
It may be difficult to cut down on the number of hits young players are exposed to, as football in high school and college are used as training for the sport's highest level.
The NFL relies on the development of player talent from a very early age to proceed up to the level in which they'll draft them.
New methods of prevention are still being introduced in search of a solution. But in the meantime, players will continue to put on their pads and take the field. For Q30 News, I'm Jordan Siegler.